Hey, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Sunday, April 19th, 2020. I'm running solo to start out this morning, but I wanted to start on time. It's always important for morning shows to get out there. Know what to expect. You got your coffee, you're ready to go. I'm going to be talking about a few different things today. I'm waiting for my co-host with the most, Nico, to join me. Nico and I have met up a couple of times this week. I know there was a show that the Mighty Mel V did yesterday. He had a bunch of different comic podcast luminaries on that show. I was only able to pop in very briefly, I guess for about 20 minutes. And we went over Boom Comic Spec a little more. I know that in the chat they were saying that Abbott had been optioned previously. That's a book that I've been pretty big on. That's Saladin Ahmed, who's doing Miles Morales currently, along with Sammy Cavella on art. And it's essentially a 70s detective supernatural tale, which will fit in well with what we're going to discuss today. Good morning, Pat. I guess I don't have to type. If I see you there, I can just respond to you directly through. It wouldn't be a comic podcast without the great Patrick Mellaragno. It's Italian, right? Mellaragno. Yeah. Well, I guess Jimmy Linguini is a true Italian name. Well, yeah, now we see all these years. It must have been Nico running late, not Jimmy Linguini. But Nico will be joining us soon. But I thought I'd run through a couple things that I grabbed while we're waiting for Nico to get in. We have a couple of exciting things to talk about. It looks like we picked the wrong company this week to focus on Supernatural, and we'll get to that in a bit. But I was talking about Mouse Guard. I showed the Mouse Guard one on my Boom comic special. And the other cool thing that David Peterson does is he does these really beautiful sketchbooks. This is a 2016 on the back. Again, his book sizes are really weird, and they're tough to find the right boxes for. I believe these are actually So this is he numbers these. This is number 62 out of 500. Sometimes he can still have some of those sketches available, and again, just sketches of the different characters. And again, why we're bringing this up is Mouse Guard was featured pretty heavily in a lot of the early promo words of the Boom and Netflix deal. I think Netflix is doing a pretty good job of basically compiling all these comic properties. And again, these are first look options with a lot of books. A lot of these books from the Dark Horse deal, from Millar World, and from Boom have been previously optioned. So look carefully. Go back and do a search. It could be, if it's 2 or 3 years ago, sometimes those options fall back out again. So they may be included in the new deal as well. That's about all I know about the insideness of Hollywood. Another book I didn't order but came. Sometimes some of the sellers who I do regular business with will throw something in. The only reason I'm bringing up this Starbuck one, obviously it's JSC, and two, this is going to be a major featured part of what's coming on with Marvel, with these characters having the Infinity Stones. We know that that she has the Reality Stone currently in her possession. Scarlet Witch has been training her as well. And we know I've also brought up in the past Hector Bautista. His name I think is like Overtime or something like that, some really bad name. But they're going to be this new Infinity Watch, and the annuals are going to tie in. So that character Amulet from Ms. Marvel, also White Fox, who I brought up a lot, who showed up in that Contest of the Champions. There's a great issue 1 variant with her on the cover. This is going to be this new Infinity Watch. I'm of the mindset that Mephisto may be involved somehow. We'll talk about Mephisto, and there's sort of that tie-in for that. We saw it in the most recent Avengers before we went into the pandemic delays. We saw that Iron Man was stuck back in time of the 1 million Avengers BC. And we also know that he had a time stone, the time stone that Hector Bautista had as well. I see Nico about to pop in, because I'm keeping an eye on the bottom. I'm going to add him right into the stream. I'm going to put him, letterbox him out. Nico, can you hear me?
Hi, buddy. I apologize for being late. I have no good excuse.
Yep, there we go. Now, there, I hear you, Nico. Welcome. How's it going, Nico? This is a one-man show, which I'm used to normally, but why don't you introduce yourself for anyone who's new to the podcast?
I'm Nico. I'm on strike from being your weekend update correspondent at comicbookspeculation.com and the Comic Book Wars podcast. But I'm very happy to be here.
Cheers, cheers.
Yeah, and I still got my shirt on from my favorite defunct podcast, which had a reunion show that I really enjoyed. Sad.
That's great. I was waiting for you to talk about that, Nico.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk a little bit about that reunion show? Well, what was it? It's like if they had the Beatles together, but they left Pete Best behind still. What happened there?
Exactly, dude. What the fuck? Oh. I blame Pete. Also, I blame Pete for my strike and for the Tiger King. I blame Pete for Tiger King as well. So, it happens.
I haven't watched it. It got so, I heard the early hype. I know you guys have been talking about
the shark already, right? Yeah.
It's like that T-shirt. I listen to bands that don't exist yet, right? It's like once you've heard hype on something or a movie or a show, you're like, yeah, I'm over it. And I'm not big on reading reviews or anything. I like to hold on things. I'm trying to think. A
lot of my comic book buying is that way.
Yeah, that's I can
I'm
tell.
Like, there was a key alert. I'll never buy that book ever. It's on the CBSI top 10.
Forget about it. Wait a minute. It just popped up over there. No. One other show.
Comic book hipsters.
Speaking of Tiger Kings, I don't know if you're. I'm a big Alex Garland fan who did a movie called Ex Machina, which was this really well done science fiction.
Not to be confused with the comic book, but an exceptional film.
Absolutely correct, and that's funny. I was wondering when they optioned that if that name was going to give it an issue, because maybe they'll call it the Great Machine or something. So I don't know what they'll do, but there's a show called Devs that's currently on Hulu, and I guess the FX Plus, and it's sort of it's very programmer driven. Devs or developers. So if you're looking for some pandemic watching and you're running out of, how many times can you watch The Office again and again? If you're my son,
what channel?
Every other day. Huh?
What channel? It's on Hulu.
Devs, DEVS, and it stars Nick Offerman from actually Parks and Recreation.
Where do I find it?
You can find it on Hulu, and it's also I think it was running on FX, maybe the FXX or FX originally, but well worth the watch. I'm on like episode 5, and it was recommended from people who I know are usually tough to go. And the other thing I'm reading right now, I bought my first audiobook. I'm finally plunging into Dune, which I've never had a chance to do. So I never saw the movie, never read the book, so I'm going in totally. Yeah, it was one of those. We all have these sort of pop culture sort of black holes, and Dune is one of them for me. Also, like I said, The Walking Dead used to be one for me. I didn't buy Walking Dead until it came out in trades. It was something I never bought in comics. So Dune and Walking Dead are two big sort of black holes of pop culture for me. Patrick, only on Hulu, he's saying right there. So at this point, though, you can get a free trial of Hulu with the commercials. But seriously,
dude, you ready for this? I'm so dumb, okay, that when I paid for Disney Plus, I didn't get Hulu.
No, you get. Well,
I does that.
I got the $120 3-year deal though.
Does that give you Hulu?
Yeah, no, and you didn't get Hulu. You didn't get the sports package. You didn't get National Geographic. Though they are.
I didn't do any of that. I feel like a moron.
But what's on Disney Plus right now? I mean, right now we're in a holding pattern. I mean, how many times do you watch their animated? Though I do have to say, for those who haven't seen it, the Great Mouse Detective, Black Cauldron, some of those '80s movies that were very maligned of the Disney lineup, not bad movies to go looking out now, especially if you have kids around the house or not kids. It's up to you. But I was showing Nico. Before you came in, I showed a Mouse Card sketchbook. I think Patrick appreciated it. I was showing the star. I also grabbed a bunch of these. Were really cheap. I've spoken about this Thor. This was Thor. What was it? Thor 12. This was the origin of Mjolnir, and why this was interesting was because when they had those sort of space sharks pop up, which everyone is connecting immediately with Null. They popped up in the Brood back in Uncanny X-Men. But actually, we see in here that these space sharks, and this is beautiful. I don't know if you know Fraser Irving. He did that Clarion the Witch Boy series a few years back, and Russell Darterman does the front series on this. But in this book, we sort of see, this beautiful, like, sort of, really, really like sort of painterly Fraser Irving art. And we find that he's fighting this sort of this goddess, and this goddess of the time is she's the goddess of storms. So it says it's like a sentient superstorm came into the universe, and you see the space shark up and close right there. And this sort of, Odin had a mighty fight with this space shark. And again, we're hearing crazy things from Taiki Waititi. Am I saying his name wrong? Taika Waititi. Taika Waititi. I can never get that right. But this is how Mjolnir was forged, using this goddess of thunder who appeared in here. So who knows, with Jane Foster getting the hammer, with strange things going on with Mjolnir. We've seen Mjolnir featured in the Love and Thunder. Love and Thunder is in the name. So I grabbed these. These were like $3, $4 books that I grabbed, a bunch of them.
Nice.
When I see things like that and a minor first appearance, again, I'm not expecting to get rich off that, but if all of a sudden we hear that's a storyline that pops up to a $20 book, 5 times your battle, all your books are paid for.
Yeah, as they say, $20 is $20.
Yeah. And here's a fun one, Nico. I had some eBay bucks. So I finally grabbed one of these.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was leaning two ways. For those who don't know, Rick Remender's Fear Agent was optioned. This was also done with the great Sir Tony Moore, who people may know from the original run on The Walking Dead before the art got really bad. But this was sort of the partial sketch variant. There is also an ash can. They look. I think the market's pretty divided between the two on which to have. The prices were ranging. I got this at a pretty good deal for what it was worth. And again,
wait till the 9/8s come back. Trust me, there'll be no dispute at all that nobody's going to want the ash cans.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. I also did grab. I've been a big fan of Jay Anacleto's work for a long time. This was the Arrow cover. I know Jimmy, whose name we dare not speak, was a fan of the K-pop star, not Arrow, but the one who's with her, sort of.
I clearly don't pay that much attention when he talks. I'm sorry, I got nothing. But I know who you're talking about, the K-pop star.
And so what's interesting in these, they have this group called the Sirenis, and the Sirenis are sort of like this group that was fighting with the Atlanteans. They're looking to bring in, Aegis of Atlas. We keep hearing will be the old group, the new group, but there's a major storyline that combines Atlantis and the Aegis of Atlas that sort of runs through this story in the back pages. So this was a 1 to 50, I think, and I grabbed it for under a 20 bill, and I got a couple of these, and that's the guy who sent the J. Scott Campbell. In the final two books before, then one's going to segue into our Supernatural. I'll let you talk, Nico. I saw they did have Dreadstar Returns with Ron Mars, whom probably a lot of you know from Green Lantern writer from way back Emerald Dawn times. And probably even
sweet, dude. 9/8, damn.
Yeah, so this was
a tough 9/8. Holy cow.
Yeah, and I've been getting really into these Epic Illustrated books lately, a lot of magazine-sized books, because especially these are books that are tough to find in 9/8 condition, and I found a pretty good deal on this. I've seen them listed as high as 500, which I would never pay for, but I got about half of that, and it's Dreadstar Returns. Jim Starlin, who we thought may never draw again, is actually back and drawing this full hardcover graphic novel. They went over 30% of their Kickstarter, I think, in the first 12 hours on this.
Wow.
So if you're a Dreadstar fan, if you've never read Dreadstar, this is the first appearance of Banff Dreadstar. I'm trying to, Nico, they said we'd never come back for a second episode. We're back for a third episode.
Yeah.
Comments, all positive comments.
I like those epic books that have the Galactus story.
Yes. And again, and also, by the way, just on the back, Champagne, the champagne of beers.
It's the champagne.
The champagne of beers. But I heard, I just wanted to clarify before we get into it that this show is a lighter morning show. We're not going to go deep dive. So somebody said that this was in effect, more a show and tell type thing, and we weren't really getting deep into speculation. And yet, again, that's what it is. These are books that Nico and I have in our collections. If you like them, if we're bringing them to your attention, if you grab them up. Before we hop into the last thing, I just want to say, Lyric Magic Moments, Black Cauldron, absolutely brilliant. As they start optioning more and more live action of these animated things, I think Black Cauldron would be really interesting for Disney's new take on that Excalibur legend. I think would be really interesting.
And my rule for books that I've been pulling has been this. If it's already sorted in my long boxes, I use short boxes, but if it's already sorted alphabetically, I don't pull them.
Yeah.
If it's in my unsorted stuff, I'll be like, and it just it helps me because I do a bad job of keeping my books in order. And it's stuff that I've purchased recently.
Yeah, and that you haven't either filed away. Like there are some things that I'll file
that I've not filed away.
Box. Like I have 2 short spec boxes, one of stuff that's like just all Marvel, and one that's everything else basically. Because Marvel is primarily where a lot of my spec comes from, even though I am a DC reader as well. But some things will not make their way into the long boxes because I know they're going to be coming up again, and they're going to be in sort of the hot commodities. But last book I picked up, and speaking of that Epic line, and this is going to segue into, for those who don't know, we're talking about Marvel Supernatural today, and for those who have been living under a rock, along with the Boom news, they also announced that Justice League Dark was one of 3.
Yeah, we picked that backwards, didn't we?
But you know what? I think we spoke a lot about Justice League Dark. I know you've spoken about it so much on that show, and I think
all of the shows.
Yeah, that's Zatanna. We've spoken about a lot. I mean, how many times? I think the Marvel Supernatural has some nice little gems buried in there, but again, Exiles 3 game variant. I have that sitting right over there. Lyric Magic Moments. That's my that's going to be when that What If comes out. But I grabbed this book, so this is a really interesting book. So do you know what this book is by chance?
I do not.
So it's Epic Illustrated to Shadowline Saga St. George 2. And why this book is important is because there's a minor character who has been tracking all the way back from medieval times. This book's from 1988. He got his own series, the character in here, in 1992, and he became a part of Deadpool's Mercs for Money back in the recent 2000s. The character I'm talking about, and I'm going to try this out now, Nico. I'm going to try this screen share out, because I've been working hard on this. So let's see if this works.
All right. Yeah, you're like a professional.
I've never done this before. And I'm gonna go to my photos and let's see if this works here. Okay, I'm back. And I'm gonna put this in right now. Boom. Okay.
Wow.
So there we go. All right.
Yeah, you're basically like that Hacker Man meme.
Yeah, it's just like so this is Terror Inc. And Terror Inc. Was first known in this St. George book. He was known as Shrek with a C in the name. I think they might have changed the name because maybe there was another Shrek character that was a little too close in name. Even though Shrek is a fantasy character from way back, even before we saw it pop up in DreamWorks, this character Shrek was he came. There was like a sort of a green bear demon who could take on different limbs of different creatures, and this man Shrek became sort of infected with the demon. Now, lo and behold, he became a mob enforcer in the 1992 series when he entered Marvel 616 and Terror Inc. 1, and then he became part of Deadpool's sort of Merc for Money group. He's one of those characters who's really sort of underutilized. It's a cheap grab. I think I grabbed St. George 1, the first appearance. And again, if you look at how he, I'm going to go back to, because I can do this now because I'm great at this.
Hacker Man.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I taught myself in 6 minutes. So anyone who can't do this, come on, guys. So you can see sort of the character changed in appearance over the years, and he took on more of that sort of that trench coat look. But if we're looking, and again, this is sort of great art. This is actually Klaus Janson. Klaus Janson, you may know, worked a lot with Frank Miller back in the day.
Dark Knight Returns,
Batman, Daredevil stuff, Batman stuff. So you can see sort of if I can, God damn it.
Nice.
That's what I can't do over there. Yeah, he had sort of that same sort of that look coming through, but even he didn't get the name Terror Inc. until later on. But again, cheap books, Terror Inc. are in your long boxes. That's his first 616. And this was this came from Mile High Comics. Again, Mile High Comics, an underrated purveyor of books that are off the radar. Don't go for them that everyone's chasing on books on. Go for them that books that no one is chasing after, especially like I always love a nice painted cover, Epic, killing it along the way. So Nico, I've been dropping a lot. So why don't you talk a little bit about what are we going to do today? We're not going to be going over some of the early Werewolf by Night books. We're not going to be going over some of the books that are going to be like exorbitant ranges that have already everyone's cashed out on. What are we going to touch on?
So it's basically what are the perspective books that may pop as the Marvel Cinematic Universe makes its turn towards the supernatural. That's a real broad category. So, I don't know how much Gary delved into, say, for example, Morbius or Manwolf. I think those would certainly be within this realm, but we're thinking more along the lines of, I think, Ghost Rider, Moon Knight, Blade, and so forth. We've seen and talked a little bit in the prior episodes about the influx of vampires in the 616 continuity, with Dracula appearing in Wolverine #1, at least in the first of those 2 stories in that book. And we foresee that these books are either ones that people have yet to talk about, or they talked about for a little bit, and now they've fallen off people's radar again. So here's where we see opportunities.
Absolutely, Nico, and it's funny, you keep like that Dracula keeps popping up, right? We talked on the X show about the vampires. We talked. I don't think I had this book on my hand last time, but this Avengers run when they sort of brought Dracula and his let me get off my screen share there. Remove from stream. Boom, and let's go back to there. So you can see that. That these are the books where sort of Dracula and his sort of this vampire batch came back. We found out that there was as you look through this, they had a lot of there weren't a lot of first appearances. Beautiful cover, by the way. If you look on and then on the back, they actually had the vampire, that vampire crew as well. So you can see it a little bigger there. And as we went through here, I just wanted to see, and this was of course the Scalera cover. This was the Scalera wraparound variant, and there's a bigger shot of where you can see so there was this whole sort of vampire crew, and then it turns out at the end that that this guy, sort of the major, he ended up being the son of Dracula, and then at the end he had his head cut off, but Dracula, it ends up that it was his whole end game the whole time to get this sort of sovereign state for vampires to exist in. Now we see Dracula's teaming up with the other villains in there, but so this was not the first appearance per se of that Son of Dracula character. I think there were a couple other characters, including this Sarge, like this weird demon dog character that had a lot of things going on with Ghost Rider down in the storyline. But this was the Avengers 14, the Scalera variant. Again, interesting storylines that are popping up, and these vampires that keep popping up and again and again. Yeah. I think we brought this up a lot, right, Nico?
So glad you pulled those. Nice.
Yeah. So I think this book is interesting, and here is the this is the 3rd print variant, which I really like, which is just the
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
Wow. Sick.
Yeah. So why? So for those who don't know, Captain Britain and MI13 first popped about during Secret Invasion. I think the major character that came out of there was right down in this corner, Phasa, and she actually gets the Excalibur sword later in the series. But Captain Britain and MI13 are essentially the supernatural investigative wing of British intelligence. And so you had in here Captain Britain, you had Black Knight, who we've spoken a lot about. You had Spitfire, who at this point was a vampire. You had Pete Wisdom from Excalibur. And I'm trying to think of anyone else major was popping. I think that was pretty much the major issues. And why this book, and I'll show you.
Kid Man-Thing.
And who else?
Kid Man-Thing.
Oh, yeah. What? Really? Yeah. I don't know why I don't remember a Kid Man-Thing in there.
I don't know. That's what they said in the live chat. Hell if I know.
Oh no, the first Kid Man-Thing in that Avengers book where we saw the little man thing.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. No, that's all right. So this series, it ran through Secret Invasion. They sort of had to run through this storyline, and it went five issues in. But then it really started to kick in around issue 6. And this was Paul Cornell, really underrated British writer, gets the colloquialisms right. We saw Black Knight actually had, they both had their swords in here, and we saw swords are going to be a big part of that X-Men game. Megan returned during this series. And this was actually the series that brought Dracula back into the Marvel Universe again. He had been out of the picture for a while, but he was back in a big way. We're going to come up to my favorite cover in a minute. So we saw this was pretty much vampire run series right down the line, along with Next Wave. This is a short length series that many people were high on, and one of my covers right here. This has to be one of my favorites of the whole series. This dark, like this Dracula sort of, like, the like Come to Me and sort of the team below. It's pretty dark, but and again, I think it went into about about 15 issues, maybe a little over that. There was an annual as well, Greg Land with Megan on there from Excalibur. But that's a series that I think you can still pick up in long boxes. Again, there are different variants or a couple different prints of that as well. And yes, Jonathan, that Avenger book I had in my hand, right? That was the Right. I think if you're going back to the Kid Man thing or whatever.
Hey, I've made 2 purchases here in the last 2 weeks.
What were they?
That are both related to this. Ironically, I got one of the books. I don't have the other one. So the first one I bought was a Dracula book, but it was not the Tomb of Dracula 1. It was this guy.
Let me put you. Wait, hold on. Let me get us.
Yeah, I broke down and picked up the first appearance of Dracula in comics, and as they say, she's a beaut, Clark. She's a beaut.
Wow.
Yeah, I did really good. I was super happy with that. Super happy with the price tag. That sucker will be sent off to CGC shortly. Who ironically is somehow open. They're an essential business, or they fall within an exception or something.
Right, my comic shop just opened again yesterday, the day before yesterday. So they're back in business. And then I
comics are raging on. Who'd have guessed?
Look at the DC contract. Well, and I'm sure a lot of people heard of it. But that DC was going to start putting books out again at the end of April. Was that when?
Yeah. So I kind of got some clarification about this. My understanding is that, and again, this may be wrong, I'm far from an insider, is that DC is publishing books that will be sent to non-traditional retailers like Walmart and those kinds of places, as opposed to books that would traditionally be distributed through Diamond. And then we're hearing Diamond's going to open middle of next month. And they'll be back in business theoretically by this time in May. The other book that I picked up, which I don't have, but as soon as I heard the news about the DC stuff and people started paying attention to that, I went and grabbed a first appearance of the Werewolf by Night in a live auction. That's how I buy, right? When people are looking over here, I'm like, oh, time I can go get this over here now. While they're focusing on Zatanna, I'm gonna get me a Werewolf by Night, and that's a book in high grade.
I'm buying the reprints, the cheap reprints of stuff, and you're buying the off the rack. I'm buying the off brand stuff on things, and you're buying the real deals, really, because I don't know what it is. I want to pull the trigger on some of those big horror books, and I know that's an area where you've been on
my shit's they're gonna fucking get sold. I mean, that's the reality of it. Like I buy them. Oopsie. All right, I buy them and then I burn them when they pop back up, like when the prices peak. I mean, that's really kind of my method.
Cyclical wave, right?
Yeah, I take my profits and then I'll buy 2. If I really like the book, I might buy back in when they hit the bottom, so I can just have it for me, particularly if I think it's got more life in it, down the road. But I mean, that's how I'm trying to get bigger, better blue chip books that I can just hold on to forever. It's all about the parlay for your buddy George.
I think of that picture of the little fish and the next size fish and the other one and the bigger to get the big whale, and that's what you want to keep doing. That's sort of your comics. You want to take these little comics and keep buying them, selling them, and parlaying them into. You're not going to parlay this into a great golden age like keeper, but you're going to parlay it into something that may be. Oh, I can grab this Bronze Age that's sort of off the radar that I know is going to pick up. Then I can sell this and parlay it into something bigger. And I always recommend keep it in PayPal. Keep a separate PayPal fund of just any profits you get off there. And what I tend to do is take 50% of that, put that in my bank account, and another 50% goes back into live stock again. So I always try to keep it a nice balance in between. I never want to have my wife look at the monthly statements at the end and say, wait a minute, why is money coming out instead of coming in with these damn books that I'm letting stay in my office, right? So if
one of the things, for example, like one of the friends of the show, one of our 3 fans, that's they were able to pop off half a dozen first appearances of Omega Red in a lot for like $110 plus shipping. They're like, oh, I completely forgot about these books. Pulled them out, listed them, boom, done. And they'll take that 110 turn it into something else.
Yeah,
Who knows? Maybe 100 different books out of dollar bins when this opens up, where they combine it with something else, grab $100 raw book, slab it, sell it for $350.
And just and keep parlaying it across them. And that's why it's important also to, you know, now more than ever, if you have time, organize your books. Like don't lose money by going out and buying a book that we've all done it, where like you get a book and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I had this book sitting right here the whole time. So one thing I did was really just, even if you just start separating companies first, and I do things like I have a whole box of like Kate's and Aaron, right? Like I say, Kate's and Aaron box. So anytime Spec pops up for those guys, boom. I have Supernatural, obviously. I have a book of cosmic things, DC, Cosmic Marvel. You don't have to alphabetize everything in your collection. Just have a general idea where it is. And again, if you're dealing with 3 or 4 boxes, it's easy. When you're dealing with 30 to 40 boxes, it's a little more, it becomes a bigger sort of, I'm going to tackle something, I'm going to put on a podcast, one of our, you know, distinguished competitor podcast, and listen to that while I'm sorting books. And that's how you're gonna get back into it. I just had my scale come this week, Nico. I'm about to open my store up the end of April again. I'm opening back up for business. I'm going to be weighing stuff out, posting it out, so I don't have to go to my post office. But I've had a lot of people reaching out to me about books, and I feel like I'm leaving money on the table. There's money to be had. You know, please, though, again, let's be reminded, don't go out. Be safe, because I just saw in Florida, I saw they opened up the beaches. You know, it's sort of like Amity all over again, right? They're opening up the beaches and people are coming out in force, and they're gonna Florida, I feel really bad. I think it's Jacksonville, if I'm right. Like the Jacksonville beaches opened up again last night. So go Florida. Any Florida listeners, sorry, but really, come on. But let's get into books, because people are here to talk about books. So I showed this. So what do you think about it? So this is obviously the reprint, and Marvel does a lot of reprints, and I think, you know, I've talked to Nick from Key Collector about this as well. Always looking at those books that are coming out. Yeah. So that's what's real and what's fake. Let's see. So there you can see that's what the book should look like. And if you're like me and you're, you know, and you don't have, then you have this one. The difference is mine was $3.99 and Nico's was 20 cents. Right. Yeah. So again, what we know that's a book that's already coming out of that whole the development deal with Hulu, right? Like they're calling it the Hellstrom. They're not calling it Son of Satan.
Yeah.
We're going to get
that's in my needs to go to CGC box, because it's the 11th hour. If I don't get that thing slabbed, it's not going to get sold. I'm not going to get top value for it, and it needs pressed, cleaned, slabbed out the frickin' door.
Right, because isn't Satana really, like, isn't that the one, like, if I were seeking out, like, anything?
Same with these things.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they need pressed, clean, slabbed out the door. I don't have a copy of the first Satana. It was too big when the news hit for me to even get in. That's a keeper. In fact, that's a book, for the record, when all this shit's over, and people, you know, have abandoned Hellstrom, and, you know, Marvel doesn't care about those characters for some number of years, and your Fairweather fans, your Fairweather comic fans aren't paying attention. When it goes down, when people aren't paying attention, when the people who bought it hoping that it was going to spike and they were going to make all this money, hold on to it too long, and then eventually are like abandoned ship, that I'll go and try to grab in a live auction.
I think that's a great, I think that's sort of a great mindset to have with that. And I'm going to give Marvel and DC, I'm going to get them back on track right now. I'm going to save the industry. Satana, Zatanna crossover. Marvel, DC.
Woo!
Work it out. Supernatural. We haven't seen it before. Get Adam Hughes on those interiors, you know, like a while to
panel by panel.
All right. Thank you. You
can mail boy.
I'll give you my address after.
Send in the check. Slayboy.
And I want to be really careful with our listeners here, because as we're talking about books, we don't want you to run out. Daredevil 270 Blackheart. I love that. We're going to talk about the dilemma, the Mephisto dilemma, in a second, and what Marvel's big issue with Mephisto and that whole scene. But please be aware there are a lot of garbage books, because remember, a lot of these the Spirits of Vengeance books that we're going to talk about and a little bit Midnight Sun stuff, they were coming out right before that big crash happened down. So you're going to see a lot of books like this. Talk about all-time garbage books. It's a first appearance, right? It's it actually says Hellstorm, Prince of Lies. It has Satana on the cover, but this is $1. This is a 99-cent book right here. Yeah. Don't start grabbing up first issues appearances. We're going to talk about it again when we look at some Moon Knight books in a minute. Moon Knight,
the end of that run, I like though.
The story itself is not bad, and again, this is Mike Bayer art. This is not it's not horrible art on here, but this is just you look at it, you're like, oh wow, it's cool, like sort of that paper cover that sort of looks like you put it in the oven for a little bit. If you ever did you had to make paper look old when you were a kid, you either did the oven or the lemon. But please be careful. You don't want to seek out like these books that are going to like not have, there's no growth on them, even on a 99-cent book like that. Those aren't the books that we're going to be talking about. One run that's currently been really, for me, it's been Avengers, the Avengers sort of supernatural sort of run, and a character that I think I've spoken about in the past, who I think, if we're going back and we're talking about that Kulan Gath character, I spoke about that Savage Avengers run. We just saw Zero come out. Kulan Gath, to me, is that mystical sort of wizard type evil character that Marvel is jumping all over with. We've seen it throughout the Conan run. We've seen it in Savage Avengers. We've seen it in X-Men. I'm starting to get of the mindset, again, that they're going to figure out a way, like Conan has become the new Wolverine for me in terms of Marvel. Like, how many books is Conan currently in? A lot of books. And it doesn't look like there's been any sort of overkill. I kind of like what they've done with him in modern times of having him bounce off characters. If you're going to do it, that's how you do it. You have this sort of fish out of water character, but Conan's coming in and getting a lot of sort of impressive sort of. So these Savage Avengers covers, they've been almost all dealing with supernatural threats. There is another Avengers book out right now, that Strike Force Avengers. They've also been dealing with mystical threats, but these are those Savage Avengers books that are dealing with Kulan Gath. Going back, just jumping to that first Son of Dracula appearance, that came in this Death of Dracula issue 1. I grabbed tons of these for like $3, $4. And if he becomes a major player, or if we ever see anything develop further down the line, that's the Death of Dracula 1 you want to get. And this is Victor Gischler, who, what's he writing? Oh yeah, he wrote that whole X-Men vampire run as well. So we see and beautiful Giuseppe Camuncoli art. You may know him from a lot of gorgeous Darth Vader and Star Wars covers Camuncoli's been on.
Gary, who the hell wrote that the end of that Hellstrom 90s run? It's driving me crazy. I tried to find it on Wikipedia.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. We can have dead time on here. We only have, a dozen. Everyone can fill up on their coffee in the meantime. So Hellstrom, Marvel. What I always do is I go to that My Comic Shop thing because they'll give you the whole run down the line.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So Hellstrom, Marvel Comics. Okay. Let's see. Anyone in the chat? No. Ultra, come on, you're not awake. Ultra, we do the morning show just so you can get your coffee, come on in and get set up. All right, we'll figure that. Okay, here we go. So in the first,
go to the end of the run. Who was the writer?
Well, was Ellis doing it by the end over there?
That's exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly what. So the Warren Ellis story is cool. Absolutely a winner. And what I would do when you see those books, because like Gary said, it's like dollar fodder. The one is a lost leader, right? Like it's the one you don't want to pay attention to. It's kind of like the shiny tinfoil nonsense.
Yeah.
Grab that Warren Ellis run.
Yeah.
At the end, because I think that if the TV show hits, that's the one that people will like. And we may be too late for it. I don't know when that's actually going to come on Hulu, but if there's still a shot, that's where that book really, I think, peaks.
And so what do you think about story-driven spec, Nico? Is there any room like...
It sucks, dude. It sucks because it's the best. It's awesome. I love it. I grew up on it. I remember when The Death of Gwen Stacy was as valuable a comic as the first appearance of Punisher. I talk about this all the time. Batman Year One, those were coveted books. And in this like cover-driven world that we now, live in comics, and people don't crack open their books. And it's painful. I'd like to believe that it's going to come back. I think I will champion story-driven spec for no other reason than like the principle of doing it. But I do that for myself, and I don't really encourage other people to do it because I don't know that it pays dividends. If you can afford to read the books and thereafter make informed decisions about first appearances, winner chicken dinner, but it's rare that you see those books go crazy in price. So when it comes to story-driven spec, for me, it's about putting sets together, you know, pulling them out of dollar bins and being able to sell them at $5 a piece. You know, I think it's a smart thing to do if you see those Batman Year Ones, for example, to grab them out of dollar bins, $2 bins, whatever the hell they may be, put together the sets, and when the new Batman movie hits, pop them up as a set on eBay, because there'll be guys like me who are getting back into comics for the first time, you know, that remember that and they're like, oh, well, I want that for my collection.
That's again, I think, so smart. And again, what we do a lot of, what I do a lot of, what you do a lot of, you know, we're reading back and saying, oh, this is cool to have this book because this set the precedent for what happened here. It's not necessarily to load up. Now, with that said and done, now I'm going to go exactly opposite of what we were just saying, and I'm going to show the beginning of this run, right? So Doctor Strange 381, and why this run is of some interest is because this was the beginning of Donny Cates' run, which was, you know, divisive for some, but I liked it, and actually ran into the a lot of people know 381. This is actually the Gabriel Walta cover. Gabriel Walta, of course, you'll know from Lock and Key. But this run started the Loki Sorcerer Supreme run, where we saw Loki take over the sort of the mantle of the Sorcerer Supreme, which could very well be a storyline as we start to see the Loki storyline. We've seen a lot with Kid Loki, but why not have Loki be sort of Sorcerer Supreme? And also a lot of people know 381 because of one particular, you've never seen, you know, more excitement for a dog until you see this guy down here. So Bats, right? So people love Bats, and Bats eventually, spoiler alert, becomes a ghost dog because he doesn't make it through the series. This 381 book, I think it was a 1-25, I want to say. Again, I got these for like a song, like really when they were out over there. If that Cates run starts to pick up, if we see further in the Mouth of Madness, or no, that's a John Carpenter movie, the Multiverse of Madness, that Cates run could pop up. There is of course Loki as the Sorcerer Supreme. We saw in that run that Doctor Strange actually released the Void in this book also, which we'd been kept captive. We've spoken about the Sentry in the past. And this run led into another actual run right after that. This was the first of the Damnation run, in which we saw Mephisto then get imprisoned and Johnny Blaze take over as the sort of the ruler of hell. And then I love that cover of just sort of Doctor Strange, Spider-Man at the window, and Doctor Strange sort of hanging out there. And that might be the first Ghost Bats. I don't know. I feel like that was close to the end of the run. That was 390. And again, Fraser Irving on art. So we're coming back full circle. That Doctor Strange book, that run in particular, I haven't loved what they've done since with that book. They had Mark Waid take him into space. I like what they're doing now. I don't know if you've read the new run, Nico, but
no, the Physician. I've got a couple of the books that are in my reading pile.
Yeah,
I heard it was good.
He has his hands are back, and there's something really weird going on with Dr. Druid in there as well. So Dr. Druid is brought back to life, and he was his like a mentor early on for him. But he's leading the hospital, and there's something with Weird World, which I've spoken about in the past of that Weird World series. He's Dr. Druid's in connection with Weird World over there. So that's been where Doctor Strange has gone in the regular run. And we spoke about, I think, speaking about mysticism, right? Like the Strange Academy, which this was the 1-50 cover, Art Adams cover. A lot of first appearances in this book. This has
what's this Art Adams 1-50 one these days?
I don't
less than ratio, or
yeah, which one is the Adams one?
Yeah, I mean, is that the high number one? I mean, the question.
No, the high one is the high one is this one right here. There we go. The high is the Opena. So that was the highest on that run that came out over there. And again, it's just like the crew on the front, typical like sort of like homage cover, right?
A lot of retailer variants, or no?
You know what? Surprisingly, I think there were 2 or 3. The only one I did grab was just because any Magic.
Gorgeous,
yeah. And I'm not a huge Peach Momoko fan, but again, this was from our friends over at the Comic Mint, and apparently they're only 600, and I have a little card in the back on there that it came with. And yeah, so there was so I thought that one, and again, I would buy this. I'd sell the trade dress and hold on to the Virgin, right? I hope that won't be taken out of context. That sound clip.
My man.
So we keep going. So I was talking about that Doctor Strange run, and a really cool run that came after that was sort of this whole thing of and we're gonna get into Ghost Rider a little, and I'll let you talk a little bit about Ghost Rider, Nico.
Yeah.
But so this set up the current status quo of where we are with Ghost Rider, and currently, for those who don't know, we know that Johnny has been is down in hell. He's ruling hell. Something has been going on. Danny Ketch, back from the Ghost Rider series of the 90s, our favorite 90s Ghost Rider, has been trying to stop him. They think his tactics have gone over the top, so they've recruited people in. And so we had this really cool sort of this Damnation series, which had these sort of supernatural level characters. This was a Greg Smallwood covers. I'll go a little bigger for these so you can sort of get a sense for that. So this was Greg Smallwood did these connecting covers, and so it featured Doc Strange, Scarlet Spider, who's actually, they had him in there because he is from Las Vegas. It had Iron Fist. We had and you can see there's a dark covers, but it had Blade. It had I think it has Wong in there, Brother Voodoo, who's been spoken a lot, Elsa Bloodstone, Moon Knight, the crazy Moon Knight, another Ghost Rider. Then we had all these Ghost Rider Avengers, and again, this is the part 3, and this is all the same Greg Smallwood connecting cover. And then finally, Mephisto on the 4th cover over there. And this is sort of the story of how Mephisto is trapped in Las Vegas, which again, you know, we saw him pop up in that Iron Man I just spoke about in the Avengers book. So something's going on with the Time Stone and Mephisto. He's playing everybody. He's popped up in these books all over. Such a great villain, but I don't think Marvel can get around the Hell issue, and I think that's going to be a big.
That's why, dude, I dumped my first appearance in Mephisto.
What is the first appearance? Do you know the first appearance? What is that, Nico? Do you know that?
Silver Surfer #3.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a gorgeous book. I got real lucky on one. I needed to put some money together, and it was in a group of higher end books that I let go of. But the long and the short of it is, I sort of came to the same conclusion you did, that those initial reports that Mephisto was going to be the villain in the WandaVision series, they fell real quiet real quick. There was a little talk about him being in the Doctor Strange sequel, and then nothing. They pulled off Mr. Horror, the director, I forget his name, who's famous for his work on you know, a lot of R-rated horror films, and replaced him with Sam Raimi. And you know, at that point, I was just like, it's done. There's not going to be a Mephisto. I'm not going to get, you know, like Satan, hell on the big screen. And while that's an awesome book, I think a lot of the price tag on it has to do with people speculating about the TV and film appearance, and not about him being this solid figure in comics. Remember, they removed him and made a deliberate decision to remove him from the Infinity Gauntlet, you know, series of movies, and he was integral to that original 6-issue series. I mean, he was there by Thanos' side throughout the whole comic. You know, so that's kind of the end of it for me. I moved on.
You have to, but you know, I'm gonna let me challenge you on that a bit. In that,
please.
So Sam Raimi, right? Like, those who know Sam Raimi, when Sam Raimi
Evil Dead.
Sam Raimi, right? So the Evil Dead, right? And they're dealing with this whole, you know, the Book of the Dead, like sort of that Necronomicon, and what he was doing back then, and he even, you know, he has that darker sensibility. If you ever saw the movie Simple Plan, let me go back to us again. So Simple Plan is basically a morality tale. These they have this money, and sort of everyone turns on everyone else. I think Sam Raimi still has in him the I think he still has that sort of, it hasn't all been neutered out yet, right? I know Spider-Man, everyone knows Raimi from Spider-Man, but I think within him, he has a great MCU movie waiting to come out. And I think with that Doc Strange, I think we're going to see some things where we're going to be jumping into different sort of universes, seeing different versions of characters, maybe almost like the MCU version of what we saw going on in the Spider-Verse. Because again, the multiverse of man, it's like we might see different versions of a lot of these characters. We may see time jumps. We don't know what we're going to see yet. But Raimi is sort of like, to me, it's going to be almost like a living sort of Looney Tunes cartoon, what he'll be able to put out there, which is what
I can't wait.
The reputation of being, right? and a lot of. Oh, by the way, we were called cover whores. I haven't even started to show some of the great covers yet. Kevin Nolan, Doc Strange. Again,
I think that may have been in reference to my description of people not reading books that are just cover whores these days.
Yeah. So come on, this Javier Garron. Like when I see Doctor Strange start to come out, like, yeah, why would? Again, I grab books cheap. You know, never buy books when they've just come out, and don't be the 1 to 50, 1 to 100 chaser. Be the one who chases them 3 months later when they've dropped to half that price. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with covers. Like here's a book that has, to me, no spec value, but I'll always love. To me, this will be one of the
I grab them
Blade covers, because Tim Bradstreet, for those who don't know, he did an amazing run on the Vertigo books and on the Punisher series, the Punisher Max books. You may know his Constantine, his Punisher, but that's a great, like, don't tell me Wesley Snipes wasn't the model for that, straight up, right? I mean, you could tell them that they were like, yeah, that's a perfect cover. And getting a book like that signed by Wesley Snipes, you know, he has tax bills to pay off, from what I've heard over the years, right? So that's something you want to do. So don't shy away from those covers necessarily. Nico, I want to talk about a character that I think, a villain character, and we always talk about villain spec is underrated, right? So we've talked about Mephisto may not be the best of bets. Character that I'm still very high on, and I think we've spoken about him before. And I went back and read this mini just in preparation for this. So I went back and read The Hood, right?
Nice.
Yeah, and we spoke about it a little bit in the past. But so Brian K. Vaughan, Kyle Hutz on the artwork. So the Hood's an interesting character because actually the Hood #1 gets a lot of hype, but in this book he only really gets the cape from the demon, and he escapes with that cape. He doesn't really become the Hood in issue 1. So I read a little further. I'm like, oh, where's the traditional? Where are we going to see really the Hood that we know now? Because this character was changed considerably by Brian Michael Bendis. A lot of people got upset. There was a whole really violent scene in the New Avengers annual where the Hood sort of we don't know what he did exactly, but they roughed up Tigra, and Tigra actually came back in that book. But they made the Hood a really nasty level character. At this point, sort of Brian Vaughan had him sort of in the middle of sort of between demons and angels, and he does get a hood from a demon, and this allows him to sort of see things beyond when he's wearing this hood. So then we had issue 2 come out, and issue 2, again, great cover, but it was really issue 3. And so issue 3 was, I said, let me dig a little deeper because I'm always interested in this first appearance cameo, what we're actually seeing. And I'm going to show you. So it's in issue 3 where we actually get him for the first time. We haven't seen him. So we see him sort of, for those who don't know, with the hood, he's up there, he's investigating. He puts the hood on in issue 2, but it's here that we get the true, what I think, when we see the hood pop up, you're going to get him actually showing up for the first time with sort of the guns, right? And I think the hood, he has these 2 guns that he wields as well. And then we actually get the page on the last page where he's christened, and it says, this new guy's on there. He even has a name, the Hood. So this is actually the first time. So it goes from name unknown to the Hood. Issue 3, maybe a sleeper book if you're into sort of true first appearances. To me, I don't think that issue 1 is truly the first appearance. It's the first appearance of that character, but it's one of those where he shows up, he grabs the hood. I think he levitates is the only thing he does because he has a hood over his shoulder. But this is probably the true first appearance of the Hood. And then I love probably my favorite cover in the whole series. The one for issue 4 is just great red cover. And with that, like to me, that's posterized, right? Or like right there. And him with the guns and the hood on the front as well. And that's the Hood we came to know more, issue 5. And then at the end, issue 6. And then we have another, and then Bendis would sort of take over the character. But a great little series. And again, talk about, like, this is the kind of series that you want to have, knowing what I showed you, not just issue 1, but you probably want to have 1 through 6 if you're planning to sell this. That'll get you a premium on those books as well. And I think he's a character ripe for developing, like in a street level Marvel book when those come back to Marvel again. Away from when Netflix was doing them. I was hoping that the Hood would be one of those characters that might pop up. Nico?
All right. So, let's see. Unlike Hellstrom #1, I grab all of the Ghost Rider #1s I see. Black cover, they're next to impossible to find in dollar bins these days. So you probably are going to have to spend $10 for them. I'd spend $10 on these if they're 9/8 contenders all day. Those 9/8 sell for huge money, hundreds of bucks. And I think they're wins, and I think you can catch people sleeping on them. I'd even do that if they're 9/8 contenders and they're direct market. Like I just would. I like obviously classic Ghost Rider appearances. I think that first appearances are super tough. It's always a CGC game with them. What's cheaper is stuff like the second appearance. It's super cheap, hard to find in high grade. When I say super cheap, I mean super cheap comparatively. The other one that I really like is the last issue of the series, all black cover. These are ones I think you can find far cheaper than, or like from me for $50, but you can find them for like $10. Particularly if they're in really nice shape. Always a move if you can get a 9/8 Katie bar the door. Now you'll hear people talk about this book all the stinking time, but they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. The reason that people like them is because it's the what do you got there?
That's it. Yeah. Was that all right?
Yeah. Yeah, the Midnight Suns bit, I grab just like the sets to put them together.
Yeah. There, and again, if you're gonna grab, like, this one is this is the first modern appearance of Lilith, right? Like that's what and first true Midnight Suns. I've shown that orange book I used to have in the past that was given out to retailers. I actually sold that book. Someone bought that book. But this was the first true appearance, right, of Midnight Suns, and they came polybagged, of course. And people say always take them out of the poly bag, but I bag my poly bags. I don't care anyway.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I give up on all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, what's less interesting, what people don't seem to care about, and I don't know why, is this little set here, which is the Ghost Rider 5s and 6s.
Nico. And
that book is super interesting for me.
We don't talk about these things but look what I had right.
For the record, we don't prepare any of this. Okay?
Just so you know, when I give Nico an outline or a script for this, it's like, let's say hi, and then let's just talk about books, and whatever happens. But yeah, this I have about 10 each of both of these. First of all, this cover alone.
Sick.
Talk about two iconic symbols right together. The Ghost
Rider
as it gets. The Post Rider skull. I mean, beautiful. And this was I'm pretty sure I know Jim Lee. It was Mark Teixeira did this cover, believe it or not, and this was Jim Lee on this cover. And I think it was Teixeira on the inside. Maybe Javier Salatares took over at some point in that run. Those were guys' names that you'll see a lot. And also this Marvel Age special. I don't know if you know the Marvel Age.
No, that's beautiful.
So this was Ghost Rider in the Midnight Suns magazine. Had a lot of interviews in it. Had I just love that cover on the front.
Absolutely.
And again, I always say with my magazines, I always double. And on the back of this one, I've shown that book before. This has nothing to do with what we're doing. But this is that Conan Khazar Savage Tales cover, which I've shown, which is actually the first team up appearance of Conan and Khazar on the cover. But again, this Marvel Age special, Midnight Suns. Again, a book that go through magazine bins. You'll find some really cool things just lurking in there. Some of the covers alone. When you see a Frank Frazetta cover, wait till you see what I have coming up next week. I ordered a bunch of these Image. Did you know about these Image Frazetta books? They were all Frazetta covers, and I got them in beautiful condition. I mean, God, they're gorgeous. So what?
Death Dealer. The Death Dealer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that was one because people know the Death Dealer, but there were some other rare ones that they had B variants for, but the A's were nicer for this. Here's another one from that Ghost Rider run, Nico. And why I like issue 9. This to me is a major character. He's coming back up in that new Ghost Rider series that's coming down the line. I'll show you some of those books. But this was Ghost Rider Blaze Spirits of Vengeance 9. This is the first appearance of Vengeance. And I don't know if you guys. So Vengeance was
really
yes. So you'll see him in here, and let's see if we actually, if I pop through, and
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and here and so talking about again Blackheart, Mephisto, right? These characters. So there he is. So look how cool that is. That's how he actually. This is how he. And you are named Vengeance. There it is, right there, straight up, created down the line, and then I think. I'm trying to see if you actually, at the very end, look at that. Only in the 90s could you get a beautiful double page spread like that. And And here's this, and Vengeance is coming back in the new Ghost Rider. We just saw this pop up, and I'm getting that weird tickle in the back of my head. So it's sort of like, just when I thought about the Infinity Watch, I started seeing all the Infinity Stones pop up. So now we have, and I'm gonna go forward to go backwards a little. So we had the new Ghost Rider series come up. I bought the black cover because I love these black covers. I've been loving the monochromatic covers. If you get a nice like silver Sharpie on there, you get a cool sketch on that. So what I think was the interesting part of this was in this Mother of Demons, and there's Lilith. So Danny Ketch goes to seek out help from Belasco, and you may know Belasco from the Magic series. She was sort of he was the head of Limbo. That's sort of what he looks like. That's Belasco right there, right? I'm gonna go. Let me see if I go there a minute. One sec. So Danny Ketch is going to seek out Belasco's help. We see Lilith is there as well. She's the Mother of Demons, of course. And we see her actually as Danny Ketch is going for help. All of a sudden, and here's what we've talked about with Johnny Blaze, right? Johnny Blaze right now is King of Hell, so he's lurking. They're trying to figure out how to stop them. There's like this big demon war going on. And then at the so we sort of see all of a sudden, boom, what happened here? Danny Ketch is now the spirit of corruption. So we're seeing the spirit of corruption. We saw the spirit of vengeance. We saw it also in one of the Ghost Rider books, and I think it's at the front of the next book I'm going to show. There's another spirit. I think they're going to have this new Spirits of Ghost Rider series, and I think they're going to have spirits of corruption, spirit of vengeance, spirit of I'm trying to think who the last character is. It's actually a pretty badass character who killed off the old West Ghost Rider. I'm trying to see if it happened in the beginning of this one. No, but in this book, this is also where we get their spirit of corruption. Danny Ketch, his new sort of, he has like that big sort of magic limbo sword on there. And even though we see him show up at the end of that book, now he's going to challenge him and battle him. So this Ghost Rider series has been great, but I think there are some nice little first appearances that you're going to see buried in here. And I think you could see down the line this becoming a regular sort of a team book of these spirits teamed up down the line. And again, these are books that are, this was a lot of people don't like these sort of blueprint variants, but they do sell that Angelo one, was making money hand over fist, maybe. So I got a bunch of those. But going back even further, I think Jason Aaron, and I've spoken about this book and why I like this book in particular. In that older Ghost Rider Spirits of Vengeance run, we had the Caretaker, and that was like the old Caretaker. That Caretaker was killed off. In this book, we see actually this Caretaker who showed up in the new Ghost Rider, and this is Sarah, the Caretaker. She's become sort of like the keeper of the chronicles of the Ghost Riders. And why that's important is because Jason Aaron developed this real mythology in this run. So this is where she makes her first appearance. She's the one who actually works hand to hand with Danny Ketch and Ghost Rider. This is her cover appearance. So this was obviously issue 26. This was issue 33. And in between that run is when we saw Jason Aaron really went to town. And one, we had some beautiful, like we had Silvestri covers. This was like one part of a combo cover that Silvestri did. But we saw him create in issue 30 all of these these Ghost Riders throughout history. So we just saw, we see the Ghost Rider on the, riding on the, what is that called? Mastodon, right? So we saw like the BC Avengers. We saw the one in the Old West. This has all of these sort of Ghost Riders popped up. And I know that Jason Aaron has said that this is going to become a major part of those mythos down the line. If they develop Ghost Rider and do a history sort of series of it, these are, again, beautiful books. Look at these covers. Tanang Wat, I think his name is, did a lot of these covers. And even Ben Oliver did a couple of covers down the line. So that Ghost Rider Aaron run went for a while. I think it only went up to issue like 30, 36, I want to say. Later issues are tougher to find in nice condition on those Ghost Riders again. Nico, anything else?
Yeah, as far as Ghost Rider goes, I grab these if they're 9/8. I definitely grab these if I think they're 9/8.
Should we turn the light out so they can get them to glow in the dark, Nico?
They are nostalgia ticklers. They're dollar bin books. You see them everywhere in dollar bins, the first and the second prints. Much like Spawn 1, the first appearance of Miguel in Spider-Man 2099. There are these. There are these like books that, you know, I think are, you can still find in dollar bins that people will be like, oh, they're so common. I just take them all. I take them all because I want to be the guy that's sitting on a short box of Spawn ones, you know, 5-10 years down the road. Because those guys are out there because they were smart enough to take them all when they saw them.
Oh yeah,
to blow the 20 bucks on them.
Right? You've seen the pictures of people with boxes just like go through. And it's all those Spawn ones just sitting there. They're the ones who caused the crash, Nico. Also, probably cheap book. You know, there are variants of that one. The Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider, who we saw. I guess he's coming back for the last eight. I guess there's another season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But
make it stop.
I'm trying. I mean, there's so many different writers. You saw the Alejandro Jones one with those great Neil Adams, the Neil Adams cover, which is like a virtual ghost. I'm not huge on this Ghost Rider. He's been the one featured in Avengers. And I'll always go through long boxes like I found that Ghost Rider. This was Ghost Rider 53. I just love that cover with and I think this is the first another troublesome Asmodeus, because there's like 10 different demons or devils running around right now in the Marvel universe. But this was first Asmodeus, who's again someone who sat on the throne of hell. So we're seeing a lot of these sort of things pop up and be cyclical in the books again and again and again.
All right, you want to move on to Tomb?
Yeah.
Or Blade generally?
Yeah. Why don't you want to pop on to some Blade stuff? Yeah.
So for me, everybody went out and grabbed the number ones of that Blade the Vampire Hunter series where he's got like the pirate shirt on, and then it became like a $50 book or something ridiculous. That's insane to me. But the one that is a real pain in the ass that I think is a smart buy is this one. Pull it out. It's still in back issue bins for nothing. It's the last issue of the series, and it's got that great depiction of Dracula on the cover. It appears like Dracula is a person of color. Hey, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I guess it's the lighting.
And a man can dream that Giancarlo Esposito will be cast as Dracula, and my whole life will be complete.
Yeah.
If you're not watching Better Call Saul, do yourself a favor. It starts slow, but by about season 2 or 3 or 4, it's exceptional.
Yeah, people have said it's almost surpassed the original source material of Breaking Bad and gone beyond.
So, yeah, it's so good.
I was at a party last night. Well, I was at a party. We did a Zoom cocktail party with like categories and whatnot, and a few couples got together. But the girl, first time she was watching Breaking Bad, and we were just like, what?
Wow.
But everyone has time on their hands. What else you have, Nico?
All right, so out of the
I'm gonna get a hot coffee while you're going big.
Okay, out of the Tomb books, right? I grabbed the Deacon Frosts, which are the 45s. There is a price variant for this. I don't know if I have any here, but there's a 30-cent price variant, which is the book you obviously want to look for. I don't have any here. Shame on me. But those are the keys there that people don't pay attention to. You can still find for the price of the other ones. The Hannibal Kings, which are the 25s. I grabbed those. The one that, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but people go nuts about, and it sells strictly as a cover purchase for big cash, comparatively, is the number 16, which is a gorgeous cover. Don't get me wrong. But it's a standout, and people will not realize that it's like a $40 book. It's in halfway decent shape or more in their long boxes, short boxes. It shows, and you can grab them. And then number 13 is the other one that I think you want to think about it when you see them out of the sets. But the real takeaways are that the 40, there's a price variant on this one, right? Pay attention to it. It's a 30-cent price variant. People don't know about that. And the other one, people don't know that the 16 sells for like disproportionately high dollars, $50.
Oh, gorgeous.
Just because of the cover. and it has for a long time. So those are kind of my like. Maybe you didn't know. Maybe you already do know. I'm sorry if you already do know, but snag them.
I think those are great. What would you say, Nico? Though, like what are buy-ins on those sort of books? If you are, like I said, if you're looking to like jump in and say, okay, you know what, those are some books that I think I would want in my collection. Like, what are you buying?
So I'm a cheap ass, super duper cheap. Like got my. When I say I don't spend my own money on comics, like I really mean that. Like I took my books from when I used to collect, sold them all, got cash, bought some more stuff, sold it, and like have never dipped into, my paycheck. So my numbers may be lower than your average lunatic, but I'm as tight as they get. I got short arms and not so long pockets. But I'm like, $20 for high grade copies. You know what I mean? Like, that's basically, I'm looking through back issue bins. If I see like a super high grade copy of like one of those books at like the $30 range, I may be like $20. And when I see the $20 ones, I'm still putting them together in stacks, being like, I'll give you $10 a piece. And when they say, I'm like, $15 a piece.
It'll be interesting when they open back up, whether or not who will have the upper hand. Because one, it's going to be like, people are going to need comics. You're going to be looking for them. On the other hand, it's like, well, do I need to buy comics, in this thing? So, it's going to be really interesting to see who has the upper hand in those sort of, especially when you're doing one-on-one, not internet sales, but when you're going into shops and finding these kind of books, because, all this stock is sort of sitting there. Unless shops went in and actually opened up an online store, they had an online component. It's a lot easier said than done. I think there's a lot of stock just sitting out there right now that people aren't going to be able to get to. To be honest, we're going to be riding into the summer, I think. And I think you're going to see more and more of these people who never had traditional online presence are going to need at some point to actually put some stuff online. So you may start to see some of these little online mom and pop stores popping up, and you may find these great deals down the line. They're going to be, what are they going to be looking at? Overstreet? Are they going to be looking at eBay prices? They're going to be pricing it accordingly. So I'm always just doing searches. Don't go right to eBay. Don't go right to my comic shop. Type in the book you're looking for, and then just go to the 5th, 6th page of some Google searches. And
amen.
Yeah, it's not brain surgery, brain science, but again, I think it's
and I do that for books that I can't find on eBay. And I'll find them in some crazy shop somewhere that I've never heard of, because nobody's ever heard of it. And that's why this book that you can't find anywhere else is on the 70th page of Google, which is pretty sweet. But I think there's an opportunity there. So those are kind of like the books I like that aren't the obvious Tomb 10, Tomb 1 when it comes to Dracula and Blade.
And like I said, we already know that the Blade announcement was the big sort of surprise announcement when they had gotten together way back when, that book, that was going to be a movie. Obviously, casting Ali.
So what I did was I was like, oh, Blade, Dracula, are you kidding me? And I went and I grabbed the nicest, cheapest copies of Tomb 1 I could find, slabbed them, waited, because it just took a couple of months before the internet scoopers were like, Dracula, and I'm like, no shit. And I sold them.
Yeah.
And I took my profit, and that's how I picked up the first appearance of Dracula in comics ever. And I'll slab that and hopefully sell it for enough money that I can pick up something else.
Now, Dracula's an interesting character, right? Because, is it considered like sort of public domain? Because I know, Universal was going to do the Universal Monster series, which crashed and burned with The Mummy. And then now they said, oh, well, let's take a new sort of, let's take a woke mentality, and we're going to do Invisible Man as sort of like a domestic abuse parable. But now they're looking at that perhaps being the way they sort of have these books out. To me, Creature of the Black Lagoon, we already got unofficially from Guillermo del Toro, right?
Yeah.
But seeing a Dracula show up over in Blade, do they have the rights to use Dracula as an antagonist in that Blade movie, with Universal having the Universal monster rights? Like I'm a little confused in that regard. Like the mummy. Can anyone use a mummy if it's not the mummy? Can anyone what does it look like? So that's what I'm interested in about. That's when it gets a little tangled about like which properties can be used. We talked about Boom. All of these properties were already like, oh, these are owned, like these are creator-owned properties that Boom does not own, so don't seek these out. I'm always curious about who are those.
Yeah, so I kind of clarified that, and you recall Dracula was in Blade 3.
Right.
The worst portrayal of Dracula ever, and I'm hoping we get a Dracula that is Giancarlo Esposito esque, you know what I mean? Like some kind of really dark, serious, like evil, frightening depiction of Dracula with Mahershala Ali, who's arguably the greatest actor of a generation. Because if that happens, watch out.
That's again, I think one that's going to draw that's going to get in a lot of public interest of people who aren't normally into the books and haven't been into that. They're going to be like, oh, what's going on here? There's going to be all this controversy. You'll see them going back to, if you remember the 70s, the blaxploitation film Blackula back in the day was a black Dracula. And I don't know, I think that portrayal is really interesting on that cover. That cover is interesting. Who did the art on that? Did we know on that cover on that last?
Well, that's a great question, and I have absolutely no idea. Yeah. But I remember, if you can look at the Comic Cron numbers. I wrote about it on comicbookspeculation.com at one point in time, I believe.
Probably you used to work for them, didn't you?
Yeah. Work is a word. Yeah.
So
but the point is, it was like, they're super small for a 90s book. I was like, what the hell's going on here?
So speaking of last issues, which I think are always, I think if you can't get first issues, I think last issues are always like a natural thing go to. And I think one of the last issues that a lot of people have looked at and have sort of like that's a last issue of a run, right? That people always love the Splat, Stephen Platt run. He did, I believe he did the last 4 covers. I want to say he did 57, 58, 59, 60. 57 was not great. 58, then we had the great Amazing Spider-Man cover. I actually just sold my last copy of that. That's a book I can't believe what it was going for. The issue before that, 60, was the 59, obviously.
I have no idea what these are going for, and I'm really interested in you telling me, but I got a bunch of them here.
Oh yeah, Stephen Platt was a big, he was sort of McFarlane-esque at that time.
Yeah, dude, he was amazing. Who was the damn soldier that he did for Image?
Not Prophet.
Yeah, it was Prophet.
Prophet, right? Prophet. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he did Prophet, and he did another one too. I can't remember what the hell it was.
Yeah, I had a cover recently. I just saw the other day of something he did. I'm like, wow.
But I freaking loved that guy when I was a little kid.
Look for that, man. Definitely, if you see that Splat sort of thing, people seek these covers out. And again, talking about a cover, and I'm going to go just full on this. It's really, these black covers. So many of these supernatural books have all sort of these black covers, and finding them without those dings. Really tough. Just black and white. Moon Knight had some beautiful. For me, Moon Knight has sort of always been a product of its covers, right? Like this one. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I did the same thing as you with all the splats, right? Every single one of them. They are no-brainers.
That one right there. So that cover is well sought after. You can sell that in spades. You have 40 bucks, 60, 75. I've seen it. Yeah, that's that one, Death in the Family. And then
I just grab them all. Yeah, I grab them every time I see them.
And there's the last issues. Yep.
Yeah, and it's all about the 9/8 candidates. You know what I mean? I haven't decided to slab those yet, but these are all the ones that are gonna send them out to get them slabbed.
And the Ultra talking about some of the DC Splat covers as well. So we're showing. So we talked a little bit about Stephen Platt. Obviously, someone who's real, like Bill Sienkiewicz is the one who is so well known. And again, those Moon Knight covers from that run, so many of these beautiful black covers. This obviously has Werewolf.
That was the companion one.
Yeah. That to me, that's the most. And again, a 9.8, I can imagine are like you know, a grail in that particular sort of cover. I mean,
you and I are seeing the same thing here.
Yeah, and again, these covers and Werewolf by Night, we're about to see that character. They're relaunching. Marvel was about to relaunch that character, I think, right before this happened, and it was going to have a Native American twist on it. I sought out some of the earlier issues, including of when Jack Russell's sister was turned into Werewolf by Night, because that was a storyline that just popped up in. Speaking of more recent books, have you been following the Ravencroft? How they have this sort of, it's Marvel's version of Arkham Asylum, basically, and Ravencroft is where all these sort of these unnamables were put in this vault for years back. But Kingpin has basically and put Norman Osborn in charge of this Ravencroft Asylum. All villains, like old Thunderbolt characters, are in charge of running it, and it's basically the only ones running it are Misty Knight and John Jameson, who had his own issues after the Carnage series. So something's not right with him. Last issue, I think we just saw D-Man get killed. Everyone knows D-Man. It looks like a combination of like Wolverine and I think so he just got killed. He was a prison guard in there, and I think maybe by Hyde or someone else. But this Werewolf by Night character, you know, we've seen the John Jameson, we've seen the Man Wolf, we've seen Werewolf by Night. You know, werewolves, vampires, these are those sort of things. You know, we had the zombie craze going on for a while. I think that's where we are. I also love, if you've never read this series, first of all, this brought Moon Knight sort of back into more of our modern times, and I want to say this was like 98 it was. So this at the late 90s sort of came back, and if you don't know Tommy Lee Edwards, he's reinvented his art like greatly, but a lot of bringing in this sort of the whole what's going on with Khonshu. We're about to see Khonshu and the whole Moon Knight wars, again, something that we've been delayed, heat up in the Avengers run from Jason Aaron. Jason Aaron is about to have all of these different Moon Knights rise up, and why I think that's interesting is because Marvel doesn't do things without purpose, and one of their guys who they have come in and do these sort of one-and-done jobs is Cullen Bunn did the Moon Knight, this Acts of Evil. And what's interesting here is you have Kang pop up. Kang story, just like I was talking about with those Ghost Riders, you sort of have all these Moon Knights from history popping up through here, and Kang is going back and sort of taking out all the Moon Knights through time. And so we get to see the Old West Moon Knight in here, down around here, teaming up. We get to see a version from like sort of the World War II. He's wearing like a helmet there. So we see all these Moon Knights, and we're about to see this big War of the Moon Knights pop up. So you get a lot of nice first appearances of different historical Moon Knights. This was the annual. I don't think there was there might have been a variant. If there was a variant and I don't have it, it wasn't a great one. It may not be related. This was that Acts of Evil, which was a spin-off on the old Acts of Vengeance, where they had different villains swap places and took on heroes they normally don't fight back in the day over at Marvel. One other cover I want to show, just because I'm a huge fan of Mike Kaluta. In fact, I have behind me that Starstruck up there, which is a definitive hardcover collection of Starstruck. If you've never read it, Kaluta did this great Moon Knight cover, and I just love them tearing at the cape, going through. Stegman has some great covers I've shown in the past. David Finch, everybody knows. These are like dollar covers, right? But David Finch, one of the best Moon Knights I've seen. In fact, he did the last issue before Moon Knight got knocked off again, because he actually made it to issue 200 this time. This was a 200 variant, and before that, I love some of the Becky Cloonan covers she was doing. Like that, that's a classic Moon Knight cover. That was 198. These are later issues in the run. Everyone is saying don't seek out like this is a Moon Knight they may be doing, right? The Warren Ellis, Declan Shalvey version of that Moon Knight, the one where he's wearing the suit and the mask. There was a Jeff Lemire version as well, and I also love the Leanna Liu Vengeance of Moon Knight cover, just him coming at you with the two guns. So again, there are a lot of covers to seek out. You don't always have to go after those first appearances. Read the stories though. See what's going on in some of these stories.
Yeah. I'm a fan of all the black covers. You know what I mean? If it's a black Moon Knight from that original run, I just snag them if they're nice. The only other book that Gary didn't talk about that I think is an easy one to find is this guy, which reprints Werewolf by Night 32, and if you can pull them out of dollar bins and they sell for, I don't know, $20.
All right.
Oh, and also grab the freaking ones. Pay $20 for these.
Seriously,
for $20. Buy them. Buy them for $20.
Grab them now. All right, let's roll. So one other supernatural aspect, and I'm only going to talk on this really briefly. And the only reason I'm even bringing this up is because the Marvel Zombie series is popping up again. That book is coming out. It's been relaunched. Marvel Zombies has gone on again and again, and I think DC has actually trumped Marvel now with their Deceased book. If you haven't been reading the newest mini of Deceased, it basically has this island of villains, all led by Vandal Savage, and they have like Deadshot. They had, I think, I want to say Cheshire maybe in there. They end up having to protect this group of kids who are being protected by a really small band of heroes who are still left after they've all been wiped out. And the villains go through the mirror world with Mirror Master. Mirror Master in the last issue he gets iced, and now now all the DC zombies are coming through to go after these kids being protected by villains. So it's been, again, I think Tom Taylor, one of the best writers. If you read he's doing all these fringe things for DC, right? They have him on all these horror fringe books. Suicide Squad, best DC book I'm reading. But anyway, talking about zombies, this I guess would be the first official Marvel zombie appearance. Again, cheap,
smart,
ultimate, fantastic. So this is 21. This was 22. So this is the first true appearance of the Marvel zombies. It then did go into issue 30. Where you actually have that really cool, and Greg Land was doing these covers, who I know Greg Land is very divisive, and 31. So this was, the zombies popped up over in the Ultimate Universe first, and I guess a precursor to that would have been, this is that cover of Curse of the Weird End of the World. Marvel released this Marvel Zombie book recently, and this guy was the original Marvel Zombie. He actually maintains his intelligence, and he has a way to sort of, in this book, it's sort of like a tragic tale. And there was a really cool, that homage variant, which I've shown as well in Hyuk Lee. And this came off of, I want to say, God, I'm going to forget the book now. But anyway, this character may end up popping up, being a bigger part of what happens in the upcoming, the zombies are now coming from space. I guess Galactus's, or I think it was Galactus, his body became like a whole repository for zombies. So that's crash landing into as they bring the Marvel zombies back. So those Ultimate Fantastic Four books, those are like $3 books, if that. And again, Ultimate books, I think I would be buying a lot of Ultimate Keys right now, because we know those books are coming back in a big way. I brought up that Ravencroft book really quickly. I haven't loved the series. It's been all right, but the Runes of Ravencroft, I did like these sort of, I like this, the Sabretooth cover.
That's cool.
Yeah, this was Miko Suyan cover on that side, and this was, for me, that Wolverine costume, always a classic, right? Like when you look back at that Wolverine costume.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a design they did a while back where they actually had Wolverine slowly like changing into like a real Wolverine, and it was horrific. Like they had these horrible ideas. I'll have to find it next time and show you. But
Jesus, man.
But if you haven't been reading the Ravencroft series, there's some interesting things in there. I don't know where they're going with it, but it does feature John Jameson. Anything. Oh, and one last. I have a few more books, but I think one thing to keep on the radar right now. I was talking to Steve Orlando, who left DC Comics to come over to Marvel. He's starting a Darkhold book, and I have this Avengers. This is Avengers 241. What's cool about this book is those early Darkhold books. And for those who don't know, the Darkhold is sort of this. There were these Darkhold scrolls. People were seeking them out from all over, and Morgan Le Fay was actually the first one to take these scrolls and insert them into, create a book out of them. And there's a lot going on. We've seen that the Scarlet Witch and sort of is going to be working with Doctor Doom in this new Darkhold series, and it's going to explore sort of the history of the Book of the Darkhold. So Morgan Le Fay pops up in there, and she goes directly into this Doc Strange. And this Doc Strange, apart from having a Hobgoblin appearance in Doc Strange, which is sort of cool in itself, at the very end, they have this sort of Dawn of the Dark books, like sort of this mini. So this retells one Thor Annual 10, which I've spoken about with the Elder Gods, but it also has the whole history of sort of this Darkhold book. And this Darkhold is going to play a big part, I think, in that sort of mystic universe. I could see it driving a book as well. Doctor Strange 11. This was a newsstand version of it. Again, cheap books, but things that are going to be on a radar at some point. And his Darkhold book, like I said, it was due out this summer. Now God knows when it's going to be coming out. So we're sort of in a holding pattern. But I would seek those books out as well. Nico, anything else?
Yeah, here we go. All right, real quick, because I know everybody wants to run. I love Elsa Bloodstone. I think now would be a time to buy things like Elsa Bloodstone, for the record, but I'm not going to go through those. Everybody knows about them. This is the Nightmare book that I like. Obviously, the first appearance of Nightmare is the first appearance of Doctor Strange, so it's a big dollar book. But this one you can find everywhere. You need it in high grade. This is not in high grade, but if you see them in high grade, I think they're a win.
And we think he could be the major, like in with the whole theme of Doctor Strange, like Nightmare, I think has pretty much been the consensus favorite to, you know.
That's a good way of describing it. Yeah. Now, the one that sort of fell off is Shumagorath.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard much about him, but there was a time when I was able to sell this book for like $50 a pop. And again, you can find them.
Books. I think those are great. Anything with Cthulhu, Shumagorath, Kulangath,
yeah,
these sort of characters that, you know.
So Dr. Voodoo's first appearance, the 9/8 sold for some unconscionable amount of money this past week. I forget what the actual figure was, but remember he had a little mini series. I grabbed them out of dollar bins, put them together as sets, and sell them online. I still like this one for the first appearance of Lilith.
Yeah. Oh,
I think that's the better Lilith book.
Absolutely. If you can, and again, that's one of those books that, like, these are books that you can seek out, but you're going to want to have to, you have to drop a little and make a little. And some, you can't be
right?
Yeah,
and I think you're better off getting the super nice copy and slabbing it than getting stuck with a mid-grade copy that you don't want, or you got to pay nothing for them, right? So I always tell people you want to get in at the very bottom or at the very top. If you're playing the game in the middle, you really have to see the book in person or be able to like outgrade the person online. And that's for a different time in the market. And those are that's for a different time on those books. When you're in the mid grade, I think that's a tougher game to play. Really, it just is. It's more of a skill game.
1000%. And you brought up these, of course, and I can't tell you.
We like them.
How many times have I sold this book and then let me go back to you too. Let me get you. There we go. How many times have I sold this book and bought a better copy back? And again, there's one, there's the two, the great codpiece cover, right? So there we go.
Yep.
Ready, Nico? And and then like and 3, tough to find too. Three's the toughest of the bunch to find. Two is just like I'm like what's going on?
Don't forget about the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, let me tell you, they are again one of those characters that I think we have a particular place in our heart for Elsa Bloodstone.
Well, and here's the thing. So
what is it about Elsa Bloodstone? Because really, she's just like, there's Ulysses Bloodstone, right? Like maybe Ulysses Bloodstone is the character to seek out, right? The one who was cursed through time to have Bloodstone. For those who don't know, he got the Bloodstone. He then passed that on. He's deceased. He popped up in that Bizarre Adventures. But something about her,
Gary, the reason that you and we've talked about it before, decided to do this show was people presumed that we were on opposite ends of the comic spectrum, right? That, oh no, Gary just cares about this week's new trash and these esoteric stories that no one knows anything about. Oh, George only cares about those stupid fucking older books that no one can afford. He's like a goddamn tourist in the comic book world. But when it comes down to brass tacks, you and I very much see comic book speculation and comic book news the same way. And that's why I think that this show is so much fun, for me at least, is we don't talk about any of these books before we start, and we always pick about half of the same ones.
We're all over those. Even like I was just looking through here, like one I didn't even know I had. I've shown this Uncanny Avengers annual and Remender and Renault and there was a variant which I won't take out over here, which had sort of Ghost Rider getting ready to make out with Scarlet Witch. But what's in here? Well, the first appearance of the Avengers of the Supernatural, which was a team of Doc Strange, Man-Thing, Blade, Satana, and at some point, was that the creature of the Black Lagoon? Is that a Marvel thing, or what's he called over here?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know. But again, just fun books, because like I said, I've shown this before. We had fun of this book, The Supernaturals, right? The one that actually, when you open it up, what does it have in it, Nico? You know it. When I open this book up, right in the back, there's that cool Ghost Rider mask, right?
Bing, 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 bing,
bing, bing, bing, right? So you can find these. These had all the masks in them, published through, and again, just a fun. Like this is not a book I would pay more than $5 for, but
no, but it's super cool.
Yeah, but I kind of love it's Jim Ballant on who did like the Catwoman stuff. So Jim Ballant on the cover. He does a really great Satana also. So she actually popped up in this book. She popped up on that book as well. She's one of those characters who I think under the radar. Satana, the Hood. Elsa Bloodstone is not under the radar, but I would grab those up. I don't think I have the Mephisto we spoke about again before. I've shown this so many times before. Like even if he doesn't pop up in the movies, I still think just for comics, and first of all, if you haven't read this,
absolutely. Well, and again, I don't know that they don't ever do Mephisto. I just don't think it's coming in these next couple movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He seems like FF, X-Men. Maybe they drop him at the end of the Doctor Strange sequel, but I think there's enough time for me to go out and get him later in time. I don't know. It's a head scratcher for me. I've certainly vacillated back and forth. I was convinced he was coming.
Yeah,
I mean, convinced, and then I've sort of talked myself out of it. But I love the Fantastic Four Mephisto, the X-Men Mephisto miniseries. I think they're super cool books. They're much like the Kitty Pryde Wolverine. Those are things that were near and dear to my heart when I was a young reader. And I think like a lot of the books we've talked about today, they tickle the nostalgia button for guys like you and I who are reading those, when we fell in love with comics, and it's like, oh yeah. Yeah, I remember that, and
that's why we do the. That's why we do the show. That's why we came together. Like I said, I do a solo show. Nico, pops up everywhere. When he feels like it. And we said, let's do a breakfast show. Let's do a morning, especially in these times, because we're not, even Mondays feel like Sundays and nights feel like days. So why not put something out there? I did want to, I don't know if you have anything else to show, Nico. I did want to wrap up with, because I did want to talk a little bit about, there's been a Creators for Comics auction going on right now.
Nice. I didn't know that. Tell me more.
Instagram show. So what I did was I took 10 screenshots, and I'm going to try to share these through. So we'll show the shots. We could talk a little bit about them. I did try to get in. I said I was going to try to drop $500 on something that I normally wouldn't get. So we've seen some creators giving away commission spots that never give away commissions. Wow. And those things went instantly for $1,500, $2,000. I'm going to show something that I put a $500 bid in. I'm going to show a couple things I put $500 bids in, and they were gone like that. So for those who don't know, the hashtag Creators for Comics is on Twitter right now. All this money is going to this one sort of like auction house where some people are a little like, oh, wait a minute, it looks like they're taking more money than they should. But then this money is going to go to brick and mortar comic shops to help them out.
Nice.
Yeah. Jim Lee had a couple amazing sketches that were going up for the $15,000 range. So that's obviously rarefied air. And it seems like a lot of these are like one book I wanted. I look all of a sudden, Ron Lim is bidding $1,500. The artist Ron Lim. I'm like, okay, I'm out of it.
I love it.
So I'm gonna try to screen share this over here. I'm gonna add this to the stream. Let's see if it works. All right.
Oh my.
All right, so Stuart Immonen and Catherine Immonen. Stuart Immonen for me is comic royalty. Nothing sort of pops above him. I'm gonna go full cover on. Let's see. So he did a Spider-Man sketch commission. This is currently going for $1,200. It went up to. And again, I like Stuart Immonen. I think he does great work. He's rarely he retired for a while, came back. This was you may have seen, and are you seeing this, Nico? Because I'm coming through.
Okay. Oh, they're great.
So this was the David Mack. He did a tribute to the first responders. This is currently $1,000.
That's beautiful.
Now, Greg Capullo. He showed actually as he made this down the line. This I think has just hit $5,000, and of course that's his take on Clayface. Amazing work.
Wow.
This was Dan Jurgens put together a remarked Superman 75 along with some original art page. This was actually this was at $650, believe it or not. And Dan Jurgens, great history with that whole talk about books, thousands and boxes sitting all over.
Wait a sec. Where's that page from?
This was from. Hold on one sec. I think I actually wrote it in the in my album title here. Hold on. Okay. Let me bring this up. In the meantime, off my Twitter. Let me keep showing, and I'll come back to that.
Yeah, please. I mean, it's just gorgeous.
So this is a funny one. In the back of a lot of the Watchmen collected editions, you see this Watchdogs sketch. This was by Neil Gaiman. He actually created that sketch, and somehow it ended up in these editions. And now he's selling the original sketch that he did for I think right now it's at about $600 for that little that napkin sketch. If that's your bag, and if you're a Watchmen fan. Neil Gaiman's version of sort of Rorschach, amazing. So now this package. So here's one that I bid hard on. So by the way, Nico, that says it's an 11 by 17 Doomsday sketch and a signed remark Superman 75 from Jurgens.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah. So this Batman detective. So here's what you get with this. This was the complete working script and all interior layouts for Detective Comics 880, including the foil edition signed by Scott and myself. So last I saw, I come in early on that at like $500-600. I think that was up in the approaching the $5,000 range as well.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Yeah. So Stephanie Hans, who I'm a big fan of, I talk to her a lot on Twitter. She's having a tough time right now. She's sort of like isolated. And so she's actually asked for people to send postcards to her dad. So I've been, sending postcards with sketches from my daughter. But she let me know that there were going to be this original piece of art that she did is hanging up in her house, actually. She never thought she would sell it. I went in at $500-600. Someone came in right in at $1,000. I was thinking about it, but then I looked again and said, you know what? I can't spend that amount of money on even though I love Stephanie Hahn. So I actually did put $100 in on the X-Men Blue 21. She and I think someone just put in $120 and outbid me on that one. That was the Jean Grey Venomized cover she did. This from the Vision thing. This is from that Gabriel Walter, who I showed earlier. I can't believe this sketch is going for $600, and that's the pet dog from Vision, who I think dies, I believe. Look at this one, Mark Guggenheim. A set visit to any show I'm associated with, lodging, transportation not included. $5,000 opening bid. I think he already got that, and he's up to $7,500 to visit the set. Mark Guggenheim did a lot of the, as I recall, the CW shows as well. Mitch Gerrards, who amazing. He's doing, this is an unpublished page as of yet from Strange Adventures 2, which has been delayed. This was up to I think $700 as well. Beautiful. Mitch Gerrards, if you know his work, he and Doc Shaner are doing the work on Strange Adventures 2. So those were a few of the just a few of the auction items, and there's tons of commissions available. Wow. Diodato's doing commissions. People who never so if you go on to Twitter, put in hashtag creators for comics with the number 4. A lot of those auctions end tomorrow at noon. So noon, the 20th, but they're going to be things that keep popping through. Some are on Instagram, some are popping up all over the place. But all your favorite creators, and there's even stuff. I saw somebody do a strange, Matthew Modine was doing a Stranger Things package, and this money all goes to, what you'll do is you'll have to pay through this one auction site. You'll have to show proof of payment, and then you'll get your auction item mailed out to you is how they're running it. So I thought we'd wrap up with that, a little goodwill for the day. That's like the morning show feature that they do all the time, the feel good feature, Nico.
Beautiful.
Yeah, the palate cleanser at the end, right? The gelato.
Yeah.
Okay,
Man, makes me feel good.
But we don't have anything set up for next week. I don't think. Any topic as of yet? Maybe we could do a create.
No, but well, here's what I think we should do.
All right.
Why don't we? You want to wait, and then we'll wait until the damn news comes out, because it always does. And if it doesn't, we'll just surprise people.
Yeah, we could always do it, and I like that. And maybe what we'll do is we'll have a smaller featurette, as like we normally do, like on X-Men or something. We'll make that a small feature, but we'll do like an all news show. We'll do like a hard news show if there's anything coming out.
Well, I just mean we could pick books based upon what I mean. How long does it take you to pick books? Like 1 hour?
Yeah, really. Basically,
I mean, that's what I do. It takes me like I'm just like.
Yeah, that's how we work. There's not a lot of planning going on the show.
Right. So I was thinking like. Maybe if there's like a news thing that hits, we'll just do whatever the hell it is.
We're ready for it. We are absolutely ready for it. Oh, and welcome, Andrew.
Or we can just surprise people.
We have an hour and 40 minutes pregame. You can go back and watch on us. And another hour. We've been running about an hour 30, hour and 45 minutes. I think that's perfect. We don't want anyone to get too sick of us, and we'll keep it weekly. We will be popping up now and then. I know I'll be doing special alerts as they come through on, and then we can cover some of that news as well. But Nico, a pleasure. Enjoy. It looks like a beautiful Sunday over here in Shaolin of New York. Yeah,
and we'll see how my collective bargaining efforts go. As everyone's aware, I'm on strike with comicbookspeculation.com. and Comic Book Wars. I'm engaged in a collective bargaining process, and we'll see how that goes.
Are you bargaining for a mask and something else to wear during the show? What do you? We don't want you to give away what the contract, what's holding up the contract, but
it's a lack of human decency on behalf of those that I give my services to for free. They failed to afford me respect, and that baseline modicum of decency is something that I command generally. So
we try to bring the positivity, just like Mr. Melvey, who I know we both popped in, right? So you always have standing offers over there. So I
had a good time with Mel. Yeah, had a good time with let's see. I've been on Tales from the Flip Side. I've been on Jack and Brian's Simple Man thing.
Yeah, you're all
Simple Man channel.
Podcast.
Basically. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Where else have I been other places recently?
And you know what? I would be remiss, Nico, if I didn't thank. I know someone reached out to you and designed our brand new Specfast Club, our box logo. It says it in my notes over there, somewhere up on YouTube, and I'd like to give him an acknowledgement at least if I.
Yeah. So Eric Hurd is a saint, and I wish I had his handle or whatnot, but he is an independent creator. I'm going to try to get together enough information that we can kind of plug the work that he does generally. But a saint who, out of the kindness of his heart, supports content creators on YouTube. He and a handful of others, Emiliano Bags, have really kind of stepped up and tried to lend a hand to people that are doing YouTube shows and provide them iconography and some symbols for their shows, and I appreciate that more than
people working together, community coming together. And I see Ultra down there doing what he does best. I know he moderates a lot of shows. We'd love to get him to pop in on a special guest appearance, and maybe he could be a correspondent, offsite correspondent, pop in. I love to get some of our chat members in there as well, invite them in, and just 5 minutes talk about where they are in terms of comic speculation. Maybe we'll throw different features on as we feel up to it. But we're going to sign out today. We're going to let you, if you came in late, please do go back and watch. There are 3 episodes to watch. You can tune in to me. Apparently, Nico asked me the other day what my channel was, and I didn't even know. So, but usually it's in a link somewhere. It's on my Twitter page. It's somewhere. I don't really, I'm not great at this marketing thing. I just like to talk comics. So, and Ultra is singing your praises over there, which we know. Ultra, why do you think he's over here? He's
a good man. Good man. Got an exceptional beard right now, for the record. If you haven't had an opportunity to pay tribute and homage to Ultra's beard, I would encourage you to find it and worship it like all of the others out there with beard envy.
Oh my God! Like, please, this is
he's getting the job done, man. He's getting the job done.
All I'm getting is this. I won't grow anything here. I have like a baby face here, but I'm really contemplating my wife cutting my hair. We were at.
Dude, I'm about to go con my my buddy into doing it. I got I'm gonna borrow clippers from the neighbors, and then we're gonna see how it goes.
Yeah, I saw the pandemic haircuts, and there's 12 of them, and they all look awful. They're like from mullets to just shaved heads with patches. So, and Andrew, I feel your pain. My wife and I finished off like 2 bottles of wine playing like Zoom games last night with other friends. So believe me, it's why I was a little tough this morning. But thank you guys for the chat, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Specfast Club. That has to be our thing. That's what the Judd Nelson at the end, right? Yeah. Right up in the air. Thanks, guys.